How much more techie can we get? This love triangle between Christian Horner, Jos Verstappen and Max Verstappen has just gone nuclear as of the team principal press conference for the Austrian Grand Prix. Oh, the humanity. Could Christian Horner become any more of a Bond villain? What are we doing? This is incredible stuff, salacious. Listen, here's what's happened. Outlaw, you're a legend. I too enjoyed the sprint. Didn't have time, just looked. No, you're a legend, Outlaw. Thank you so much. Far too kind. So, here's what's kicked off. And I'm going to have to read you out these things verbatim because they're far too techie for me. My emotional shoulders are far too brittle, vulnerable even, to cope with this amount of torment. I think it's over between... In fact, you know what? Let me not be premature. I'll read you out what Christian Horner said, a.k.a. Red Bull's original Bond villain. So obviously the line of questioning was all going to be around Max Verstappen and his future. What do you think, Christian? You're relieved to hear him that he's going to stay to at least 2025, etc., etc. But Jos Verstappen too needed to get some of that, didn't he? Here's your first question. Are you relieved, Christian Horner, that Max said he will stay? To which Christian responded, Max is an important part of our team. He's won all his races and podiums with this team. His 3 championships thus far have been won with this team. He's a crucial member of our team. He enjoys being part of the team. This tone feels awfully familiar, lest we forget around the time when one Adrian Newey, GOAT aerodynamicist, left Red Bull. This was the same sort of chat that we were hearing, were it not? Stuff to this effect. We've built up a brilliant aerodynamic team. Our technical team are now sufficiently robust and capable to where they can operate as a team, independent of Adrian Newey. What we can't have is key man dependencies, so we've upskilled our team. These are all words that came out of Christian Horner's mouth, and it's an awfully familiar tone, is it not? Again, for the avoidance of doubt, F1 history doesn't often repeat, but it does sometimes rhyme, and there are common threads here at which we need to pull. Techie, he continues, does Horner, aka Red Bull's original Bond villain, saying that we know what the future looks like. Well, mate, don't talk too soon, Christian. I think there is a very many cards, negotiating and otherwise, still to be played here, chap. And Christian, I don't think you want to be overplaying your hand necessarily. Don't blow your load too soon, fella. It's going to get techie. Christian continues, lots of noise is being made about Max Verstappen going elsewhere. And here's where it gets super chaotic, chat. He says he accuses Toto the boy who cried wolf of leveraging distraction tactics, saying that the driver who kicked off all of this driver silly season this year in 2024 had all of the Mercedes simulator data to hand, all of the information about the technical spec, the regulations and Mercedes power unit, all of that info. And yet, said Christian Horner, and I quote, he, Sir Lewis Carl Davidson Hamilton, still chose to leave. Oh, the humanity. What are we doing, chat? This dude has walked straight off a James Bond set as the villain, pulling no punches, shooting to kill each and every single time. Oh, the humanity. What are we doing? He's right, isn't he? That Lewis absolutely would have been privy to that information. The rumour about Mercedes having taken a leap in the 2026 rule and reg spec via their engine unit, their powertrain. And yet still, per Christian Horner, he chose to leave. What does that say then about Mercedes' aspirations, their probability of reclimbing even that mountaintop in 2026? What does it say? Non-rhetorical question. Around Mercedes' seat, continues Horner. There will be a driver joining them next year, but his name, says Horner, will not be Maximilian Verstappen. Oh, the humanity. I want to call his bluff. I don't think he should be so sure. I feel like this is more bluster than substance. We need to start taking this rumour and speculation of Maximilian Verstappen potentially wanting to leave to go to Mercedes, potentially more seriously than we have been. Asked about Maximilian Verstappen's performance, Christian reiterates, Max has been operating at a different level of late, getting it done at critical times. His execution has been second to none, absolutely 100% correct. But also, again, a recurring theme, that T word pops its ugly head up again. Christian continues, but also credit to the team. Because of the team this, because of the team that, they have performed brilliantly at critical times. Have our team. Again, fresh in the memory, this same sort of tone was what was being regurgitated all the while on the brink of Adrian Newey leaving, just before even. All of them were saying it. Max too, Enrico Balbo, Pierre Vacher. We are a team of aero guys and tech guys. He was saying all of this, wasn't he? Lazy, you're an absolute legend, sir. Proper legendary status. Thank you so much. Far too kind, mate. And smash the like. We are a team. That's all that Christian Horner's peddling out. And in so doing, if you are Maximilian Verstappen, listening to this stuff, the tone, the words that are coming out of his mouth, do you not feel like your feats are being trivialized, minimized for? That Christian Horner is placing the team, which he should as a manager, above Maximilian Verstappen, the gem in the Red Bull crown. Would this not make you more inclined to leave and go to pastures anew? Let's say the boys and girls over at Brackley and Brixworth, if indeed you are Max Verstappen. Non-rhetorical question. It gets techie, this. And listen, get buckled up, because it only gets techier. Why do you think Toto Wolf is saying all this? Christian Horner gets asked. Again, he reiterates that he thinks it's a distraction tactic. And here's where it gets very bloody techie. Because he was asked on the rancor between himself, Christian Horner, and Jos Verstappen, Maximilian's dad. Because it has got techie over the past couple of days, lest we forget that at the Austrian Grand Prix, if you can get your words out, Cameron, at the Austrian Grand Prix this weekend, there's meant to be a Legends Parade. Remember, for the avoidance of doubt, this is 20 years since the inception of Red Bull Racing as an F1 team. Austrian as a Grand Prix is their home Grand Prix, is it not? So they're looking to show out. The plan was to have legends, old F1 drivers, and old drivers being Fittipaldi, Herbert, David Coulthard, Mark Webber, I think, as well as one Jos Verstappen. Drive around in old Red Bull cars. Max's dad was set to drive the same machine that Vettel drove in 2012 even, to victory, to a championship. Nostalgia settings, nice fuzzy warm feeling to celebrate Red Bull in all their glory as a team. Jos Verstappen, however, will not be there any longer. Something's happened. And depending on who you talk to, you'll get different accounts of the story. Jos Verstappen says this, that he was due to be there, but Christian Horner didn't fancy it much. And so what Christian Horner did, rather than veto his being there, because again, the guys and girls at Salzburg, they'd rubber stamped Jos Verstappen being in that car this weekend. Christian Horner said, you know what, you can go in the car, mate, but what I don't want to see is photos and videos of that. Sack off the drone. We're not going to have the drone follow Jos Verstappen around the track. Why would we do that? So no videos and no photos. That was Christian Horner's call. You can still drive the car, but there will be no footage of it. Not on the website, nor on the Red Bull media gallery or anything like that. To which one Jos Verstappen responded thus, you know what, mate, sack it off. I don't even want to do it anyway. He heard from several sources that Christian Horner did everything he could to not let me drive that car. Then I thought, say it to my face, why don't you? Says Mr. Verstappen Sr. I find it very disappointing. Oh, the humanity. Mate. Verstappen called Horner childish in his decision making in an interview with Formula One .nl, saying, how childish can you be? There was going to be no filming, also with a drone, but Horner didn't want me to be filmed. I'm completely finished with Horner. It's like a playground here at Red Bull. I would have been allowed to drive it in the end, but I backed out. I find this ever so childish from Horner, but I think it says something about him. What are we doing, chat? It's gone chaotic, hasn't it? This is nuclear now. No one, as if they were ever pulling any punches, but that's all dead in the water. And there was I thinking that they'd managed to paint over the cracks. There are fissures now between Camp Verstappen and Camp Horner, and it goes deeper than Salzburg as versus the Trivializing family. They really dislike each other. No hate each other. And here's where Horner doubles down on it. Keep that in mind, that has happened. Jos Verstappen will no longer be driving at this Legends Parade in a Red Bull F1 car with a view to celebrate the history of Red Bull as a faction, as a racing team even. He will not be there. So how does Christian Horner, Bond villain of the Bulls that are red, how does he reflect upon this? He remarks, you know what, I don't know what's going on with that. I have no clue. I didn't realise Jos Verstappen. He kind of denies all knowledge. He plays PR, again starting to paper over the fissures and the cracks that he sees building thick and fast between himself and Max Verstappen, the gem in the Red Bull crown. Here's what he has to say. This is where he gets sticky. Talking about Max Verstappen potentially going to Mercedes, he was asked, why does Toto keep saying this? If there's no fact and Max Verstappen has come out and said it's not going to happen, why does Toto keep beating this drum? To which Christian Horner responds, reiterates again even, that this is just a distraction tactic. I have heard, and here's where it gets chaotic, Christian Horner nails this in the coffin. You can't even write this. Christian says, I've heard if he wants a Verstappen, if Toto Wolf wants a Verstappen to drive his car in the next year, then Jos Verstappen is available. What are we doing, chat? You can't even say that. You cannot say that, Christian Horner. You are doing one of these, chap. Like that's bonkers. How is Max Verstappen as Jos's son gonna view that, ingest those barbs? Because it's gone nuclear now. That's chaos. How would you feel if Christian Horner had sabotaged you being at that parade, shouting you're a legend? Toxicity at the workplace is not good for any team, sir. I echo those sentiments and I concur. I will reiterate, every time I read this sentence, I don't believe, even at his worst, as a Bond villain of the Bulls that are red, that Christian Horner could have said this. Again, he says that if Toto Wolf of Mercedes wants a Verstappen to drive for Mercedes next year, then I hear that Jos might be available. I mean, oh, the humanity. What? What are we doing here, Christian? And he doubles down even more on this. When he was asked about the Legends Parade and Jos not being in there, it would be a shame then for all of the Dutch fans that have turned up and want to see Jos in that car, right? Driving round, participating in the Legends Parade. The nostalgia is on 10 then. Won't this be a disappointment for the fans? Christian Horner was challenged. Christian responded, well, look, hopefully Maximilian can get it done tomorrow, and that will give the fans something more to chant and shout about, more than any Jos Verstappen could. And then he continues, and here's the big double down. And I think the legends tomorrow will carry on and do their thing. The implication, therefore, being unsaid in brackets, that Jos Verstappen is not a legend. Oh, the humanity. This is bonkers. It just gets more and more bonkers. This dude keeps on doubling down on this Jos Verstappen hatred. I mean, could you poke at that fella anymore? As if your relationship weren't already bottom of the barrel. Things get worse. He keeps He keeps stabbing at him, right? Prodding at him. And I just can't believe Christian Horner's saying this at this point. How does that help you, chap? I understand that you are Bond villain Horner and that you will never refuse an opportunity to jab and job at Jos Verstappen. I get it. The two of you are not friends. But I think Christian Horner might have overplayed his hand here. Chat, I'm going to be honest. Because now, more than ever, he needs to make sure that that car remains dominant. And to that, by the way, he was asked about whether he has the fastest car in F1 after the brilliant performance of Lando Norris in McLaren, who looked quicker. At least their car looked quicker than did the RB20, did it not? To that, Christian Horner responded, I think I've still got the best team in F1. And again, I think what's more important in that statement, not what he said, what's left unsaid. He's acknowledging that McLaren are coming, that they've built a car that can challenge, no, beat the RB20 in absolute pace terms. So the problem here is that the bottleneck, the cork in this equation is, of course, Maximilian Verstappen. He's been outperforming, but for him in that car, Lando Norris would have beat him last race, would he not? So surely then, the play, if you are a God-tier people manager, man manager in Christian Horner, the play then is to manage Maximilian Verstappen's stakehold, not to cheese him or his off. And what has Christian Horner done then? If not cheese off Jos Verstappen, even more. And there are pictures being taken this weekend of Jos Verstappen in conversation, in fervent chat with Mercedes-Benz Patronus AMG. What are you doing? They've already had conversations at Miami. Active negotiations are ongoing. Toto Wolf would kill to get his hands on a Max Verstappen signature for the avoidance of doubt. He would drop kick George Russell in the face to get a whiff of Max Verstappen in that car next year. Are you crazy? Do you know what the stakes are? And then you go out and do this. Christian Horner. Time and place, chap. Now, at this Grand Prix, the Austrian Grand Prix, Red Bull's home Grand Prix, now and there are neither the time or the place, Christian. What are we doing? It's getting more and more chaotic. I don't know how to fix for this, Christian. You've dug yourself a massive hole, and I won't be surprised if Max Verstappen does one of these. I'm out. I can no longer cope with this rancor and this acrimony between my dad and my team principal. It's going to be hard for Maximilian Verstappen to juggle all those balls. All he wants to do is get in the car and race. He doesn't want to be concerned for all this nonsense. Can you imagine him watching Christian Horner taking these jibes at his dad? The man who raised him and birthed him, the man who gave him his racing career, took him to all his karting races et al. He's been raised in Jos Verstappen's image, for Pete's sake. So what are we doing then, Christian Horner? By openly, in front of the world's press and media, cheesing him off. Surely sort this out behind closed doors, Christian, if you are the God-tier man manager that I think you are. You spoke about doing this behind private closed doors when you were talking about Danny Rick and solving for that driving conundrum. So how comes you couldn't do this with this then? I don't understand, chap. It's bonkers. Genuinely, I don't understand what Christian Horner is going for with this. This situation is now worse than it ever has been. Hence, listen, my crystal ball is as murky as the next person. That much is true. 100%. However, is anybody here going to tell me that the least likely outcome is Max Verstappen going to Mercedes next year? Or in 2026 even, when they've developed their brilliant new shiny Silver Arrows car and put a god-tier race-leading power unit in it too. 2026, stay tuned, chat. It's going to be chaos. Jos wasn't even Perez level. And I don't even think that matters, Visual. Does it matter how good Jos is or was? Okay, so he wasn't a brilliant F1 driver, right? But he is Max Verstappen's father. They are intricately linked, intrinsically linked even. He is your driver's dad. So then do not cheese him off. Manage his stakeholder visual. What are we doing? Tony, Horner is overcome with paranoia with everyone out to get him. He really started all of this after the Thai owner backed him 100%. Yeah, I think he's emboldened, isn't he? A little bit emboldened and entitled. But this is too much now. All of those statements. Like, I think if Toto wants a Verstappen, that Jos is available. Like, what are we doing? After you've just sacked him off from the parade, you say that it's too much. This is deeper than rap. Kenny, you're a legend. Jos is the MBS of parents. GTFO, always making things about me, especially in public. Jos keeps talking to media about closed... Mate, it's techie. I don't disagree with what you're saying, Kenny, and you'll be closer to the circumstance than I will. But yet and still, sometimes as a team principle, if you're leading from the front, your back and your shoulders need to be broad, right? You've got to take a certain amount of flack in the public and turn the other cheek if indeed you've got the best team and you want for them to do well, to maximise and optimise for their efficiency and outcomes. Surely then, Christian Horner, the play was to turn the other cheek. Okay, so the dude didn't want to shake your hand in Austria this weekend. Fair. But do you revenge tactics like this? How does that work out towards the upside of your team as opposed to the downside? I don't know. I just find it funny, says Visual. That you got to learn being up close with MSC and Damon Hill. I know he didn't do well. He was never there, was he? He was never there, and he'll be acutely aware of the failings. I feel like the failings of Jos Verstappen's career are the gains of Max Verstappen's career. Jos realised where he went wrong and desperately didn't want to make those mistakes for his son's career. Hence why those two are always going to be intrinsically linked. He is Max Verstappen's father, for Pete's sake. Coach, mentor, responsible. Does Max even have a career without Jos? Josen, you're a legend. Egotistical maniacs. Mate, who can't put the team first. I think you might have nailed it there, Sharrison. I think that might be what we're dealing with. Okay, so they've fallen out over the PA in the initial circumstance, and then Jos probably, allegedly, sent all those bloody pictures and messages to the world's press and accredited F1 media potentially. So, of course, Christian will want to get his own back, but to the detriment of the team and the cause and keeping hold of your driver. Listen, I think, Matt, if I were Max, I'd probably just sack it off, to be fair. Wouldn't you just leave and go to pastures anew if you're Max Verstappen at this stage with your team principal, the dude you have to talk to every day and go to breakfast and dinner and lunch with? He's taking shots at your dad, unadulterated ones of serious consequence each and every single time. What are we doing here? This is bonkers. Total cutthroat world of F1. Wouldn't trust your family in times like that. Who has he got if not his family, Tony? This is what I'm saying. And I've heard Max say on a gazillion occasions now, particularly around the time of peak oil Christian Horner allegations gate. He said, listen, you will never hear me go against my dad. Ultimately, that's my dad. That's Helmut Marko, and he's responsible for my career. So too my dad. You will never hear me in the press and media going against him. Why? What for? And that's what Christian Horner is expecting Maximilian Verstappen to do by coming out with those things. The legends, sans use Verstappen will go well tomorrow, I am sure. Jeez, if Toto wants a Verstappen, I think Jos is available after I've sacked him off because I didn't want him to get filmed. What are we doing? Rorschach says, but somehow Jos always makes bigger waves than others. Pretty sure Anthony Hamilton or Norbert Vettel had stuff to say, complain about back in the day. Well, they sacked off their fathers, didn't they? And this is what a lot of people are saying in the paddock, that at some stage, maybe Max wants to distance himself from Jos. Maybe this is part of that process. People have remarked that over the past couple of races, when Jos hasn't been there, that Max Verstappen's shoulders have relaxed, right? He's coming of age. Christian even talked about this, that Max joined as a baby. He was like 16, 17 years old when he joined the Red Bull family, right? However, since then, he's come of age. His shoulders are relaxed back, right? He's now a man. Like, he's a brilliant driver, right? One of the best that we've ever seen. And so surely then, do you need to at some stage distance yourself from your father? Just like Lewis and Seb did? Why you're a legend. Just thank you so much. You do, guys. Does not need Horner. Horner needs Max. Agree with you. Maybe H has fallen victim to Napoleonic complex. I don't know what's going on with him. Not genuinely. Look, you know what's so confusing? Up until now, Horner has been nothing if not a genius manager. Gave Adrian Newey everything that he needed and shielded him from the nonsense up until this year, right? And so what's changed? I don't understand. Maybe he has become too power hungry, too aware of his star now on the back of Drive to Survive stardom. Cameo appearances, 15 minutes worth of fame. Maybe he does want to leverage British financiers to peel off F1 technologies from Red Bull to become a Toto Wolf per se, an equivalent even at Red Bull, shareholder come team principal. I don't know what's going on though, Noah. I feel like he's overstepped massively. I feel like this can only hurt the Can you imagine rocking up at breakfast tomorrow with Max Verstappen and Christian Horner? After Christian's spoken so openly and disparagingly about Max's dad, 3 soon to be 4-time champion. What? Is it chaos? Ron, Horner is worse than Fabio by far, but he hasn't been up until now, Ron. This is the source of my exasperation. He has not been. He's been God tier as far as his ability to manage Horner and the principals being Max Verstappen, Jos. Like, he's nailed it up until now. I'm trying to understand, where is the variance? What's changed year on year? Maybe it is Horner allegation gate that's completely changed everything. Maybe it has something to do with the emails and the text messages that were sent to the permanently accredited F1 journals. Maybe it is that. Maybe this is Horner's revenge tour. Maybe he's going full send to the detriment of anything. Maybe he doesn't care. Maybe he understands that the Tayavidra family see him as an adopted son and will back him all the way, irrespective of what he does or what lines he oversteps. Maybe that is his team. Maybe he's crafted and built it in his own image to the extent where none of this matters. Jos Verstappen is dispensable. Maybe he sees Max as dispensable too. Oh, the humanity. I'll tell you this much though. He wants to make sure that he keeps building a quick car. Max Verstappen keeps telling us, listen, that car wasn't quick enough in Spain. We need a dominant car if we're going to keep winning. We can't be perfect as a team and a driver at each and every single Grand Prix. Give me that car. Lazy, the allegations, 100%. It's chaos. I don't even know. Are you not entertained with this? Roshan, I figured it was some token of chess. I don't know what Roshan's talking about there. Why the hell should Josh drive the RB8? There is no reason. If it happens, cool. If they say no or at least want a review, don't act like you're entitled. It's an RB8, not a Benetton. Oh, the humanity. Why should he drive an RB8? Well, simply put, Roshan, because he's Max's father, right? And they're in Austria, and this is a home Grand Prix of sorts. They needed another head. Jos Verstappen ultimately, once upon a time, was an F1 driver who raced alongside Michael Schumacher. Legend, probably not, but ultimately he's Max's dad and you want to keep him happy. Film, surely. What, we're going to fall out again over drones, film footage and like photos? Unbelievable. Seems minimal. Yeah, that certainly was not a smart action from Horner. Think that he has to explain this at RB headquarters. Who, by the way, and you make a great point, yeah, this drive by Jos Verstappen was rubber stamped by the guys and girls at Salzburg, right? Being Mintzlaff and Mateschitz. Mark, like, so what? Now, Horner, you've gone nuclear in front of the world press and media. You always, as a manager, you've always got to present a united front and then have your fights behind closed doors now. That's what you should be doing. That's God tier management. So why is Christian Horner doing... Genuine question, non-rhetorical. You guys tell me in the chat, why is Christian Horner doing this now? How is he emboldened? Team Cameron F1, just Mike, you're a legend, mate. I'd love this. I look forward to nothing more than this on a Friday night, genuinely. Friday at 8 p.m, the back and forth. Let's hope so. Lewis wins tomorrow, says Ron. And Russell second. Wonder if that has no influence on MV. What definitely will have an influence on Max, Ron, is the frequency with which that car starts winning Grand Prix. Toto Wolf will be acutely aware of the need to develop that car expeditiously now. Because again, every race that they can win, or every tenth of a second that Mercedes can improve between now and the end of the season, is additional bait, an additional selling point, another pitch to Maximilian Verstappen, because he won't leave. If that Mercedes is nowhere, even with the promise of a God-tier power unit in 2026, Max isn't going to leave that team. The team is brilliant. They barely make any mistakes. The car is still very, very good. Market leading, some would say, if behind McLaren. So why would he leave unless he gets a couple of different assurances? He needs that car, that Mercedes. Toto Wolff needs to make it good now. So it's techie, right? There are loads of interdependencies here. Toto wants Max, but he's not going to come unless he knows that they've got a brilliant car that can win races in his hand. He'll want a decent sized contract too, anywhere between 70 and 100 million per year, and he'll want to know that they have nailed that power unit. But Christian Horner makes the point, right? A genius one. Lewis had all the marbles, all the information in his hand, did he not? He would have seen the simulation, he would have understood the rumour and been able to fact check it about their power unit being God tier in 26. But yet and still Lewis Hamilton left. So what does that say really? Genuinely, what does that mean for the prospects of that power unit? Or maybe Lewis left, that notwithstanding. Not because of that, but despite it, who knows? Jarrison like to see their downfall, but not this way. Not like this. Sharrison, not like this. Would I like to see... Mate, I just want to see... I'm a simpleton, me, Sharrison. A proper F1 simpleton. I just want to see good racing at the front. The more, the merrier. If I could have a season where it were Mercedes... You know what, actually, tell a lie. Here's what I was about to say, and then I'll correct myself. If I could have a season where it was Mercedes, Ferrari, Red Bull, Aston, McLaren, all fighting for race wins, I'd be happy. But I still think there's scores to be settled on the back of 2021, right? Like, I want to see a season. I would love it. My my pole position, if I had one wish from a genie in a lamp, it would be for Ferrari and Red Bull to be almost on equal footing next year. Oh, the humanity. Just like McLaren are now. But from race one, oh my God. Can you imagine? It would be chaos. Lazy says, we just want clean racing without any drama outside this. Lazy, I don't know if I agree with that necessarily, you know. I don't hate the drama, especially when... Okay, so now that it's competitive and we've got convergence, then it's a different thing. We don't necessarily need for the drama outside. But when it was boring and it was peak oil theory as far as Christian Horner's allegations, like when it needed that, mate, everybody would have turned off. Yep, says Horner's management style was very appreciated and invited at all kind of podia to tell about this, but now his ego might bring himself down. I call that a little bit stupid. Pity for him. It would be a pity if this spat were to unwind all of his good work. It would be a bit of a shame, right? Ironic almost that a woman has gone between Christian Horner and Jos Verstappen allegedly, and that this has led to the empire falling down crumb by crumb. Who would have thunk it? Adrian Newey leaves first, and then potentially Maximilian Verstappen, courtesy of a Helmut Marko clause. Who would have thunk it? Not me. How could one have predicted for this? And but for Horner allegations gate, would this be going on? Would this be ensuing in real time? But for the PA's allegations, but for the affair that allegedly she had with Christian Horner and also had with Maximilian Verstappen's father, allegedly. Like, you just don't know, eh? Oh, the humanity. It's so technical. Visual. What are these changes proving? Visual. That's by the way. Blind rage. Yeah, you can't stand Horner anymore, understandably. But I kind of fancy my stupid idea that Toto's gorilla money is the reason. No. I think Toto's looking to take advantage of this, but I don't think that he's the cause, not the root cause at least. I think this has been going on between the two. I think this has been simmering. It has been simmering for a while now. They spoke about the acrimony between Sainz Jr. and Verstappen Sr., right? Back in the days of 2016 at Toro Rosso. They didn't get along. That there was a difficulty in prioritising conflicting demands, and then you throw into the mix Helmut Marko, who's ostensibly a Max Verstappen guy, right? He brought him into F1. It's techie. How do you manage that? How do you juggle for all those conflicting demand balls? How? Really, with difficulty always, right? Speak to Peter Windsor about this. Adrian Newey can't be the easiest guy to work with and for. Like you gotta manage these things in real time, but because they are your key stakeholders, you need to keep them happy. And what was Christian Horner doing just then at the team principal's press conference today, if not keeping them happy? In fact, everything that he was doing was diametrically opposed to keeping key stakeholders happy. Can't wait to see them interacting tomorrow. Like I want to see Max come out the car and talk to Christian Horner and read their body language. Max can't be happy, and they're going to ask Max as well, are they not? Like what do you make of your team boss's statements about your father, Max? He's passed the hospital balls, right? He's passed the ball massively. As long as reporters stick microphones in Jos's face, he will get this stuff. Chaos. Kingdoms have fallen for want of living. You're not wrong. Maybe let's see. I'm not convinced yet. Toto will not get Max. Bloody Nora. How do you know, though? How do you know, Swirling? My crystal ball, for the avoidance of doubt, is as murky as the next person's. However, I will say it again. I don't think 2 months ago this would have been the least likely outcome. It is not anymore. Max Verstappen going to Mercedes. It is not. Not because of what's happened. It cannot be because of Max's statements, because of Christian Horner's statements. Max always being qualifying, caveating, I will be here next year. Well, what about 2027 and 2026, Max? Because your contract goes on until 2028, does it not? Yeah, I think Lewis left. I think Lewis left to be used. I believe he left. I don't think Lewis left because of the 2026 data. I believe he left because he wanted to end his career at Ferrari, trying to get his 8th championship and end his career as the true GOAT. Well, it had been something. It had been an itch that he wanted to scratch for ages, right? And again, truth sayer, I always say this, they are so different, Lewis and Max, but there are so many parallels between them that I don't even think they're aware of. Both truth sayers, their come up, their relationships with their dad and how that panned out. Lewis had to take a step away from Anthony, did he not? And so too might Max. Commentators and guys and girls inside the paddock have talked about, since Jos hasn't been at the most recent Grand Prix, that Max has kind of, do you know what I mean? He's exhaled for not having the pressure of Jos around all the bloody time. So maybe that might be the direction in which Max is headed. He's got his manager, Raymond Vermeulen. So does he need Jos to be there at each and every single race Grand Prix? I don't know. Would he be better off for not having him there? Especially with all this rancor and beef between him and Max's team boss. I have no idea. But no, I agree with you what you're saying about Lewis. I think Lewis just wanted to tick a box. 39, 40 years old, what's the point? And especially at the time, let's not do the revisionist history. At the time when he signed, Mercedes were nowhere, and looked like they were going nowhere fast. But there is paradigm shift each and every single time. The goalposts are constantly moving in F1, are they not? One day in 1992 and 93, Williams are the dominant car. That was the car that I raced in on games and had in my Sky Electrics, the Labatt's Williams. What are you talking about? One of the most dominant machines with that active suspension that you've ever seen. And what happens since? They haven't got a sniff. They've never gone close again since Adrian Newey left. 1992 and 93 were their pinnacle. How many moons ago is that now? Long, 31 years. F1, I say all that to say this, F1 is changeable, like mercurial by its nature. No one team or driver has a God-given right to win races or championships in perpetuity. Williams are case in point. Where are they now? When was the last time that Williams won a race? I can't even remember. Ages ago. Christian Horner thinks he's Beyonce when actually it's Max. Go on then, Scott. This is techie because I've asked you guys this question. Let me know in the chat. Between Newey, Horner and Max, which one of those do you think is the MVP? Let's get there. We'll get this vote. Because again, this testament to F1 being a moving beast, right? An ever-changing Rubik's Cube for which these guys and girls need to solve for. You guys tell me in the chat. Is it Max? Is it Adrian? Or is it Christian? Which one of those guys is the MVP? It's techie, right? Ask me that a couple months ago and I'll give you one answer. Ask me that now and I'm giving you a completely different answer. On the back of the past couple of race weekends, what are we doing? Max just wants a good car. I don't disagree. Lazy. Rorschach. Lewis went because he would never get even a similar contract at any other team. It's Ferrari. 100% sure about this. So they offered, to your point, Rorschach, what Lewis wanted was an ambassador. Two things. Two tenants, main ones as far as Lewis Hamilton's desires that ultimately pushed him into the arms of the red team. So Lewis wanted an ambassadorial role. He wanted a multi-year contract. And I think he wanted a promise. So the ambassadorial role was post his career, right? And also he wanted a brilliant car, a car that he could win races in. So the last one, the brilliant car, nowhere to be seen at the time when he decided he was going to go to Ferrari. Hence why his stop loss was like, well, gamble. What's the point? I've got nothing to lose because I'm not going to win in this team anyway. Then the ambassadorial role that the board, a la Calunius and Toto, couldn't get the board to sign off on, right? He wanted a multi-year. They weren't prepared to give him that either. But I don't hate the fact that they wouldn't give him a multi-year, but there needed to be real understanding of the fact that Ferrari would do that. And again, there is your pull factor, right? That's the genesis story of how Lewis ended up at the red team. Too techie. Yap says, I'm not sure Max would go to Mercedes-Benz. They certainly can build a very good engine, but in designing, they might be too theoretical. I think he would just wait to see what Newey does and where he goes. But Newey might go. I think he might. Well, it's a good shout, actually. I haven't put that together. I love the way you've connected those jigsaw puzzle pieces. So then Toto will be in the background, desperate to sign Adrian Newey. But I'm told reliably that Adrian Newey does not rate one Toto, the boy who cried wolf. So of all the teams, he's just not going to go to Mercedes. Pity that. Can you imagine if Toto could sign Adrian Newey and Maximilian Verstappen for next year? Oh, the humanity. But again, this is an ever-revolving Rubik's Cube. It changes by the second, depending on what side of the bed one Christian Horner has gotten up on. Imagine, holy smoke, if they want to sign a Verstappen and I hear Jos is free. After I've just cancelled his Legends Parade participation. Oh my gosh, mate. Tomorrow is going to be chaotic, if not for the comments. Can you imagine being a journo at the Austrian Grand Prix? You're not going to want to know about the racing, not just yet. What for the sprint shootout? Who cares? You're going to want to know all the questions tomorrow in the paddock to Max and to Christian will be around the comments that he's made in the team principals press conference, because he's been chaotic. like messy, even deliberately salacious. Max just wants a good car. Yep, I'm not sure Max would go. This is chaos. I can't even cope. And this, I tell you what the sadness in and amongst all this is. The sadness is that I was set up ready to come and eulogize about Max's lap, right? That Sector 1 was incredible. I'm speaking to my guy, Mr. PTD Windsor, about this, and he contends that Sector 1 is made for one Maximilian Verstappen. It just is. It speaks to his strengths as a driver, the ability to combine these geometric racing line type corners, these ones where you want to, like a Maggots and Beckett's. Sector 1 has that, right? So too, though, does Sector 3. Look at those last 2 turns in Sector 3 and check out Max's onboard. Remember, Sector 1 he was purple, but Sector 2 versus Lando Norris, he was down. Lando was on one. Brilliant lap from Lando Norris yet again. But that 99.5%, the 0.5 that he's missing, he was missing it again today. It's becoming the story of his life, right? He's going to have to up his game to a level that at the moment, as at June 2024, he might not have even achieved in his life. Going to have to recalibrate even for what's achievable, because he's got to raise his game. He would have been convinced, Lando, that was the pole lap. It would have felt like that in that car. But then Max goes and nails that Sector 3, right? Out of the 7 microsectors in Sector 3, those first 3 were purple. I was like, what? This dude just, honestly. And this is what we should be talking about. Is it not a travesty of justice, to one of your points earlier, that we're talking about all this salacious stuff on this Friday night instead of Maximilian Verstappen's performance, his god-tier ability, not just speed, but his ability to execute on tap. They say that the greatest ones can reach for the inner depths, that the greatest of their talents in the most important moments. It's those 3 things combined, right? Time and place. And what is Max doing if not that each and every single time? Lando was up, for Pete's sake, going into Sector 3, and then Max just snatches it. Come here, that's mine. I want it. Please see these purple microsectors, 3 of them back to back consecutively. It just speaks to, that Max has always had pace. But what he has now that the others I don't think have, sans a Lewis or an Alonso as an example, what he has now is the ability to tap into that, on tap almost, to execute. If you've ever done a time trial on like a Gran Turismo, we used to get very techie back in the day, in my younger days when my hair was less grey. On Gran Turismo 2, we used to do trial mounting, and we got it to an art. And each and every single time we were just trying to perfect the lap. And when you did a good Sector 1 and Sector 2, when you had green numbers and negative split, going into that final turn, I never forget the pressure of having to execute for that final left-hander on a trial mountain. And then the final chicane, it became more pressured, right? And this is what Max, courtesy of his 10,000 hours, does so brilliantly. I don't think any of those other chaps on the grid can do. Not now. Maybe Lewis like a couple of years ago, maybe Lewis still now in the right car, but the ability to execute in the times when it matters, and this is what we should be talking about, chat. Do you know what I mean? This should be the conversation this Friday afternoon/evening, but no, we're talking about Christian Horner versus Jos Verstappen. Some Honda engineers allegedly did seppuku after Lance. Was it still? Oh my gosh, Rorschach, I just understood what you said. Okay, you got me out here saying dodgy terms. No, they could listen. The Lance Stroll thing is techie, but again, you got to manage people's stakeholder, right? You can't even go and work for that team if you're not on board with the thesis that is that Lance Stroll is going to be driving for that team. Don't even go and work at Aston Martin, because he is the owner's son. As sad as it is for the likes of Teo, Felipe, all of the rest of them coming through who haven't even got super license, like Herta, Palo, Maloney, like all of them, Iwasa, like all of Miata, all of these guys coming through will be looking at that like, hold on, what about me? But Lance has, if you go back and listen to that interview in Field 4, Lance talks to it. Like he says in no uncertain terms, per Carlos Sainz Jr. actually, he concurs that you need a load of luck. Listen, you can only do so much if you harbour ambitions of getting into F1. There's only so many things inside of your control, right? You need luck. You need time to be on your side. You need your ascent through the feeder formula, F2 in particular, to coincide with there being a couple seats, right, in F1. If everybody's sticking, if there were like 20 Max Verstappens in F1 at the moment, then what's the point? You're not getting in, chap. Like 20 Lewis Hamiltons, then there's no room at the inn, sadly. So you got to have all these things. You need the backing. You need to have joined a junior team like Red Bull or a Mercedes, or be in the McLaren set. You need this backing. If you don't have it, then you're going to struggle always. The reason why Hamilton left Mercedes, said Scott, is because they did not offer him the whole deal, and they had opportunity to go to the greatest team in the Formula One history, Forza Ferrari. I don't hate it. I think you're on the money there, Scott. I'm not shocked at Lance. I expected it, but it still doesn't make it right. I agreed. Sabotage. It moved over to Aston Martin. I don't even know. There is a dose of realism, right? When you've been in the game long enough, if you've been watching F1, I wasn't surprised, but I was disappointed. I don't like the fact that F1, again, it's the sliding rule, right? I feel like there is always going to be a fine line to walk for F1 between finance and capitalistic desires as versus meritocracy. How good a driver are you? And currently, I'd argue that F1 is too far over towards the finance aspect. It's a bit too money driven, and it just needs to recalibrate for that and move it back over there. How you do that in an era where drive to survive is a thing, and do you know what I mean? Each team is worth in excess of $1 billion. Each team not named Alpine. Like, I have no clue. I wonder how these celebrities that invested all that money in that via that consortium in Alpine, I wonder how they're viewing all this chaos. Maybe that's why Fabio's been brought on board to manage for their stakeholder. Too chaotic, chat. Rorschach, I can imagine Lawrence Stroll involving himself as an AM R&D, like, oh my gosh, Rorschach, surely not. I don't think that's his skill set. Hire someone in, right? Mention no names. One Adrian Newey, potentially. J Visual, you're telling me Alonso is sabotaging his own setups. What's Visual saying? Alonso is testing different setups, that's why he's driving erratic. Maybe. That's what Lewis Hamilton's been doing for about 15 months now, isn't it? Alonso has laid down the gauntlet to Aston Martin as a team now. Sort out your life. Sick and tired of all these upgrades coming. And I'm not seeing any positive iteration. And I don't hate that from Alonso. Again, Alonso, like Lewis, man, I because he's so good, please see Brazil versus Checo Perez last year. Because he's so god tier, it feels like a shame to have his career just a waste, you know what I mean? Love, have you read Alonso's reaction to Lance's contract renewal? Absolutely. I have not seen it. What did he say? I can imagine. But he's been quite good with towing the party line. Anything to do with Lance Stroll, he's always like, oh, this setup is good. Tell Lance this. He gets it, does Alonso. He's a bad guy. He's a heel, but he knows how to play the game. Do you know what I mean? It's the game, Cameron, but who or what can change it, says Tony. It's becoming too big in a world without any substance or controls, Tony. And I agree with you. This is F1, some say, is a victim of its own success. No, what's going on, Eddie? It is it. Let's get techie on the like button. Lazy, you're a legend. To reiterate, as we round third base, F1, some say, is a victim of its own success in scraping and clawing to become a mainstream success, a viable mainstream proposition. Surely then the downside ramifications correspond to its core fan base, the diehards, the greybeards, the guys and girls who are around back in the day, Jim Clark's era, Mansell's era as an example. How about Prost? What happens to those guys? How do we manage for their stakehold? How do we keep them bought in a sport now where overtaking is all that matters, right? Bang for buck racing. What happened to the purity of the thing? And I don't want to sound like the old guy at the bar talking about back in my day when F1 was better than it was now, because things need to evolve, but its rate of evolution needs to be matched commensurately by sustaining the buy-in of the girl who brought F1 to the dance. That's my story, chat, and I'm sticking to it. You guys have been legends. But for now, the prosecution rests. No further questions, Your Honour.